Well, we have a live crossover in to Gaza City this morning with Caroline Willemen, Doctors Without Borders, MSF Project Coordinator in Gaza, and this comes against the background of the famine, of the deliberate starvation of 2 million people in Gaza. And earlier on, we spoke about journalists that are just so weak to actually work, and I'm sure the same can be said about healthcare and aid workers. And this is a pressing reality in terms of malnutrition in Gaza. And Caroline, on the ground, being able to articulate what the starvation we means, what this man-made famine means, and how this is actually impacting on humanitarian aid in Gaza. Caroline, good morning to you out of Gaza City this morning. Welcome, and we do appreciate you taking time out with us this morning right here on Solar Media. Caroline, let's just begin with this most pressing reality of the current scale of malnutrition in Gaza. And we know a lot has been said, a lot has been written about the children, about the elderly, and just to understand how dire the situation is on the ground right now as we speak. Uh, I see we have lost Caroline. I think she has frozen for some reason or the other, and we will get her to reconnect in a minute. Let us remember that she is out in Gaza City, so possibly there could be some connectivity issues, but we are trying to get her to reconnect because why this is absolutely important and why this is necessary to talk about. Aid workers and how aid workers, there we go, Caroline is back with us. Caroline, thank you once again for reconnecting, and let's just talk about the pressing reality to start off with in terms of the current state of malnutrition in Gaza, especially amongst children, amongst the elderly, and just how dire, how serious is the situation on the ground as we speak.
Yes, dire is indeed the word. So one of the activities that we run here in Gaza City as Doctors Without Borders is a primary healthcare center that includes a malnutrition program. Since May, the number of patients on this malnutrition program has quadrupled. And since in the last week, we are enrolling 25 new patients every single day. These are children under the age of 5 or pregnant and lactating women. So we see a devastating increase in the number of patients requiring treatment for malnutrition. And this is knowing very well that we are not the main provider here for these malnourished cases. We treat mainly moderately acutely people with moderate acute malnutrition. We do see cases of severe acute malnutrition as well, who require a level of care that we are not able to provide, and we struggle every day to be able to refer these patients to more specialized services who can take care of them, but all services are overwhelmed. That's what we see in our patients. What we also see in our patients, because we have many people that we treat for horrendous burns, also people with orthopedic wounds who have external fixators holding their bones together. Of course, if these people don't eat well, their wounds do not heal. So there is an impact of this malnutrition that goes beyond the malnutrition in itself. It's also really impacting the medical status of any other medical issue that people might have. And as you referenced the journalists, I can say that yes, also my own Palestinian colleagues, despite having a salary, they are hungry, and many of them, they come to work hungry every single day.
Yes, Caroline. In fact, one can, just imagine, both medically and psychologically, what it is actually doing to a person's body to go without food, with hunger, and even for people like yourselves, even for people who are aid workers, and we are now learning that they are standing in food lines, risking their lives just to feed their own families. So this is not only limited to journalists and the greater population, but even aid workers that are impacted, Caroline.
No, indeed. I mean, in terms of what it does to people, my colleagues and everybody in Gaza City wakes up in the morning thinks, where will I find food for my children today? This is a constant stress, a constant worry, with very many people knowing it is very unlikely that I find something today. Then, physically speaking, of course, to be very clear, I am not a medical professional, but of course, I work very closely with our medical team. Obviously, there is hunger. We see dozens, if not hundreds, of patients every day who beg us to enroll their children onto the malnutrition program because their children are hungry. They're not yet, medically speaking, malnourished, which means we cannot treat them because the therapeutic feeding products that we give, they're a medication, they're not food. But people are desperate, and the drama is also that we know that this child will probably come back in a week, and then he or she will be malnourished. It is a matter of time if more food doesn't come in anytime soon. Of course, in the more advanced stages of malnutrition, at some point also the body just shuts down. And these severe cases, they are extremely difficult medically to treat, because you get to a point where just giving food is no longer the solution. Like, it becomes a rather complex medical treatment because the body has shut down, the organs have shut down to such an extent that it can no longer be solved with just providing more food. Of course, there is indeed, like, people have to spend most of their time looking for food, trying to find anything in the market that is still available for sale, trying to compare prices, because the few things that are still available are incredibly expensive. And that's the reality that they live, and the shame that they feel, that also they describe to me, of not being able to feed their families. I had a colleague this week asking me if I could help finding a can of milk for his baby, and I cannot, because there is no can of milk. Much as I would love to support, it is simply not possible. We now manage to provide through this community kitchen a very simple rice meal once per day on the working days of our staff members. I know that very many of them, they will not eat this food that they are offered. They will take it home and they will give it to their children who have also not eaten. And of course, on top of this, we have the daily massacres of people being shot at, being killed, and being injured at the distribution sites, which is something that my colleagues, even here in the north of Gaza, have witnessed with their own eyes.
Caroline, we see these horrific images of thousands of people converging on these distribution sites, or these food distribution sites. And at the same time, we see hundreds being killed at the same time at these distribution points. Just take us through the conditions. What are the conditions like at these food distribution sites? How dangerous is are these distribution points, and how dangerous have they become?
They are extremely dangerous. So, just to be clear, I am based in the north of Gaza, so I'm further away from the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution sites. But I know, because I have colleagues working in the south, there is absolutely nothing humanitarian about this foundation. People are corralled into spaces, hundreds, thousands of them together. These people are desperate as well to get the little that they can get. Obviously, these sites have become completely inaccessible also to children, to women, to elderly people, because it is so dangerous to go there. A Palestinian colleague of mine, I think, described it very well when he said people go there and they know that they are just as likely to come back with a package of food as with a bullet in their head. And this is the reality that we see. What we see here in the north are similar scenes, even if there are no sites of the Gaza so-called humanitarian foundation, but there are trucks of the World Food Program that every now and then can enter. And my own colleagues were at the emergency room earlier this week when dozens upon dozens of dead and wounded arrived. So these were people who had gone towards the border area in desperate hope of trying to get a bag of flour of these WFP trucks. and they had been shot by as reported by the WFP, the World Food Program, by the Israeli forces, resulting in, I know that my own colleagues witnessed 18 dead and 71 wounded, but the final toll that we heard about was 79 people who were killed in that incident.
Yes, it is obvious, Caroline. We've seen over a period of time the term war crime being used often, and now again in terms of the deliberate starvation of civilians, and looking at it both from a legal and a humanitarian perspective and standpoint. How significant is the framing of this term war crime, which is used to describe this deliberate starvation of civilians?
So I'm obviously not a legal scholar, but indeed we very much see that starvation is being used as a way to control people. The word genocide is not a word we use lightly at Doctors Without Borders, but if you see what we see here, which is people deliberately deprived of food, people being shot at when they desperately try to get food, people being deprived of sufficient access to water, the complete decimation of a healthcare system, all of this, of course, on top on airstrikes every single day, shooting from quadcopters, a genocide is what we are witnessing here.
Yes. Caroline, the key issue here is there is no shortage of essential supplies, whether we're talking about food, whether we're talking about water, whether we're talking about medical supplies. These are sitting outside, they are sitting in warehouses, some of them even in Gaza. And just to understand the barriers that they are facing, and we know what has happened with UNRWA as well, the UN agencies, all of that actually put together, and again, deliberately being prevented from functioning to its optimal capacity in addressing the dire situation in Gaza. And just to understand, where does the responsibility lie for this blockade in terms of life-saving aid that is much needed in Gaza?
Yeah. I mean, it is very clear. It is the Israeli authorities who are blocking the free flow and free access to aid, as well as the possibility for organizations to organize this assistance in the way that they do all over the world. By the way, as Doctors Without Borders, we are not part of the UN system, but we do advocate for UN coordinated humanitarian assistance to be able to come in the quantities that are needed, because indeed this is the infuriating thing. Mere kilometers away from me, there is a whole different world, and there is food and there are medical supplies, because of course medical supplies remain an issue as well. We do not plan more than 2-3 weeks ahead, because I don't know if I will have in my clinic the necessary medical supplies to continue doing the work that we are doing. And it is unconscionable that the Israeli authorities are applying this strategy, and it is unconscionable that the rest of the world is watching and allowing it to happen.
Yes, as aid workers, I'm sure it takes a huge emotional toll on aid workers as well, Caroline. And yeah, I just want to make reference to one aid worker who is quoted a child saying they want to go to heaven because heaven has food. Now, just to a statement like this, and this hunger crisis tells us that this has got a huge mental impact in terms of both the mental health and the dignity of a child to be able to make a statement like this.
Absolutely. I've myself had a conversation with an 11-year-old girl who told me it would be better if a very big bomb would fall on Gaza and kill us all at the same time, instead of us having to die slowly, one by one, having to die a little bit every single day. So can you imagine what has been done to the psyche, to the mental health of every single person in the Gaza Strip, including children, that an 11-year-old would tell me something like this. So it is in like the mental health consequences of the people who have lived this genocide for now almost 2 years, will take decades and I would say generations for people to recover from. At the same time, I do want to say people keep saying there is no humanity left in Gaza. And I would counter that by saying I have never seen more humanity in my life than I see in the healthcare workers, in particular in Gaza, who keep coming to work every day, tired, hungry, but doing the work they need to do to save the patients they can still save.
Yes. Caroline, let's just move to the international community, governments, and you've called on governments to stop waiting for permission to act. And again, this appeal that goes out to governments and also to other international bodies on how urgent this situation is, because despite statements coming through, from Israel or from the EU talking about scaling up aid and you know, also at the same time talking about making progress, it doesn't appear to be happening. And this again requires urgent intervention on the part of international bodies and governments.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I am, again, neither a legal scholar nor a politician, but yes, I can say that we have seen nothing of the promise of additional aid coming in at the moment. What is needed not today, not tomorrow, but what was needed yesterday, and frankly, what was needed almost 2 years ago, is a sustained ceasefire, which, with the latest news, unfortunately, we are not very optimistic about, and is free access of humanitarian assistance. And I cannot find the words for the urgency with which we urge anyone, any state with the slightest amount of power to make this happen, how this needs to happen now, because people die every single day, and we have been urging for this for months, for since the very beginning of this war, of this genocide, and yet it is not happening. And yet it is also unimaginable that we could not have imagined that we would get to this point. We could not have imagined. I've arrived only 4 weeks ago. I could not have imagined 4 weeks ago that the situation would still significantly deteriorate since the horrendous situation that I found when I arrived 4 weeks ago.
Caroline, are airdrops and option? We know what had happened with the Madeline flotilla as well, or is it just a symbolic gesture?
I mean, I am not a food aid specialist, but if you think about the amount of food assistance that will be needed for 2 million people who are hungry, yes, I'm not a logistician who works with this. It will be very difficult to provide that amount of food. I visited a community kitchen the other day where people cook 50,000 meals per day. It is incredibly impressive to see. But so this is a community kitchen here in Gaza City, and then you think, okay, 50,000 meals. There's a million people here. They're not the only community kitchen, but you have to think of the scale of what is needed. So again, I am not a technical professional on this, but I highly doubt that airdrops only would be able to resolve the dire need that people have here.
Caroline, just finally, we know this is not only about starvation, it is about survival, it is about dignity, it is also about justice. And your message out of Gaza City this morning to people listening right now, and particularly those of us who feel powerless, we want to help or speak up. What message would that be?
I mean, I would urge anyone who has the willingness, the energy to do so, to push those in power to take action and to take decisive action. Again, first and foremost towards a ceasefire, so that people are no longer dying every single day because they are no longer being killed every single day because they are being bombed, because they are being shot at. But on top of that as well, the free access of aid. These are really the two key points that everyone who is able to do should be pushing those in power for that to move as soon as possible.
Well, Caroline, thank you very much for that and also taking time out. I know these are difficult times, these are trying times as well for you, for Doctors Without Borders, for MSF, for everyone in Gaza at this point in time. And we do appreciate you taking time out. We wish you well. We wish you safety as well, good health as well under these very, very trying, difficult circumstances. And I know for aid workers as well, it's emotional, it's a traumatic experience for them as well. It is taking a toll. But once again, we thank you. We do appreciate you taking time out. And more importantly, keep up the good work. All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Caroline Willemen with us this morning, Doctors Without Borders MSF project coordinator out of Gaza City, live with us right here on Salam Media this morning.